Good morning, everybody. It is once again another edition of the podcast series I've been doing called Changing the Game on Rutherford Sports Network. And today we're going to talk about changing the game in college football. And while at the heart and soul of college football, it's pretty good on its own, there are some things I'd like to see change to make the game better. First of all, the overtime rule. Now, I'm old enough to remember when there wasn't overtime in college football and there were still ties in college football. And I really didn't like them at the time. It's a situation where, for a while when I was a little kid, I could understand it but when it started costing teams national championships and the conference championships and whatnot, and you could just simply play the overtime period. Now, the rule itself isn't so bad, but as we've seen, there have been times where I think the overtime rule kind of took things way off the rails a little bit. Where we went to like the LSU Texas A&M game a few years ago that ended up with each team scoring into the 70s. So here's how I would change it, and it's similar to the way I would do in professional football. Instead of just going straight to putting the ball at the 25-yard line, giving them 4 downs to score, instead I would start off with 2 periods, 7.5 minutes each, where instead of sudden death overtime, you would play until a team has won the game by having more points than the other team at the end of a particular overtime period, or a team would score more than 9 or more points to win the game, to where basically they lead by 2 scores or more, essentially. That to me makes more sense because it gives each team a fair shot at winning it. If you say return a kickoff and score, and then you pick off a pass and score, your defense didn't get a chance to do anything, well, that's tough luck, but you at least had a chance to do something. It's always bugged me that in sudden death overtime, the team that gets the ball and runs down the field and kicks a field goal or now scores a touchdown automatically wins the game. And the other team does not at least have a shot at responding. To me, I think that would give an opportunity. Now, in bowl games, I would go 15 minutes. Regular season, 7.5, maybe 10 minutes. Maybe play both periods. And then if it's still tied, then you go to the 4 downs at the 25 and go from there. And here's another thing. Instead of just having it go into perpetual until there's a winner, you have, say, 4 times you do it. Like at the end of the 6th overtime, then you take the XFL rule where they put the ball at the 2-yard line, and it's basically 2-point conversions. Whoever can, it's basically a shootout. And I kind of like that rule, and the XFL came out. The XFL actually came out with some pretty good ideas this time around. I don't know if I want to go with the conversion. And let me get switched to that, where the XFL rule was no more extra point kicks, but instead having it put a 1-point conversion at the 2, the 2-point conversion at the 5, and a 3-point conversion at the 10. I don't know if I want to do that in college. I'm kind of in the pros. I can kind of understand it. College, the game, they're not as polished as the professional football players are. Let's face it. I tend to think that I'm kind of leaning one way one day and the next day the other way and all of that. So there is definitely options for both of them. I just think that having an extra point kick where it is, I think the NFL rule would be better. Have it towards a 33-yard extra point, and you'd have to, it would be challenging again, not automatic like it is now. That being said, I could definitely see the onside kick rule that's been proposed by the XFL, which is basically at the 30-yard line, you have a 4th and 15. And if you convert, then you get to keep the ball. I like that rule. Maybe the 35 in college, maybe, and 30 and 4th and 15 from the 30 in the pros. I like that rule. The kickoff rule in the XFL could be tweaked some, maybe bring it to the college game and at pro game, but there are going to be people who have plenty of debate about this rule because they think, well, you can to tradition. Well, what does this say too? I think there's a lot to be said about making the game safer. The targeting rule needs to be changed. I think that instead of automatic ejection, it would depend upon, like in the NBA, you have flagrant 1 and flagrant 2. Flagrant 1, you don't get ejected. Flagrant 2, you do get ejected. I think that the referees should have the option of saying targeting level 1, which would mean, it would be an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. And if you get 2 in a game, then you get ejected. But if it were a level 2, which where there was clear intent to injure, then you would be automatically ejected and suspended for the next half or the game, whatever the rule is now. I think that would allow for referees to make a more accurate call, to where they could tell the player wasn't intending to hurt the other player. It's just that the technique was sloppy. It was a circumstance where they thought the player was going to stand up, and instead the player slipped down, and it was a circumstantial thing. That it would allow referees to go, okay, the circumstances where the player didn't intend to hurt this player, but because of their actions, it could have hurt this player, or did hurt this player. So it's a targeting level 1, and in a clear case where there was intent to hurt somebody, then that would be targeting level 2. You're still going to have the debate, and you're going to have the debate where a lot of folks are going to go, oh, it should have been a level 2 instead of a level 1, or this should have been a level 1 instead of level 2. But at the very least, you allow the referees to make more of an accurate call than just, where a player may have been a little over enthusiastic, maybe a little over aggressive, and the offensive player, receiver, whatever, slips at the wrong time, and, they're screwed, basically. They're going to get ejected. Whereas if they have this system where they have like the flagrant 1, flagrant 2 in the NBA, I tend to believe that would do a lot better for the game itself. Really, there's not a whole lot more I would improve upon the game, although I would definitely do this, and that is I would start the season earlier, as in August 1st. Put in more bye weeks, and allow for teams to play an extra game or two. Maybe go to 14 games, but have more bye weeks, and to where the college football season would end Thanksgiving weekend. with conference championship games that weekend. Then you would go to the playoff system. And I've always believed that a 16 to 24 team playoff would be great, where the conference champions of all the conferences in Division I would get the opportunity to play for the national championship. And you could seed them accordingly, and you would have an opportunity. A team, this would give every college football team on Division I FBS the realistic opportunity to play for a national championship, to have that dream season, for the lowest team in Sun Belt football to go all the way to the national championship. It would be highly unlikely, but right now the way the system is, Appalachian State could go undefeated, could go undefeated, untied, and unscored upon, and yet they would find a way to not play for the national championship. They'd play in a New Year's Six Bowl, but not for the national championship. Where in this system, they would have that opportunity. Now, how would you do that? Well, we've got a plethora of bowl games. Let's talk about the bowl system for a minute. Why are 6-6 teams playing in bowl games? Why are even 7-5 teams? I'm old enough to remember when bowl games meant something. When playing in a bowl game was a distinction. When you were 7-4 and you went to a bowl game, that was a big deal. That was something important. I wish we'd get back to that. And here's my rule. You'd have the playoffs. But even if you didn't make the playoffs, if you were 8-4 or 9-3, you get to go to a bowl game, but not just one bowl game. Maybe, if you're good enough, you go to 2. If you're not in the to me that makes a whole lot of sense, because now you reward teams for being successful, not just being 500. And now, if you lose a bowl game, you're 6-7. You have a losing record, but you still went to a bowl game. That doesn't make any sense to me. If you're 7-5, you go to a bowl game and you lose the bowl game, you're 7-6. Yeah, you're winning, but you're only winning by one game, having a winning record by one game. I want to make it to where bowl games mean something again, where if you are a good team, you had a successful season, you're rewarded for that. And that to me makes a whole lot of difference, because right now, if it just doesn't, I remember back when I was a kid, college football meant something. College football was important. The bowl season was important. The regular season meant a lot. And the playoffs I'm proposing, they still mean a lot. It means everything to these smaller schools, because, hey, if you win the conference championship, you get to go to the playoffs. You got a shot at the national championship. That means all these games matter. And in the bigger conferences, the conference championship may not mean as much, because SEC will probably get maybe two, maybe 3 teams in. But it still matters because seedings. The 24 teams would mean that, you'd have a seed. Now, the first 2 rounds I would play at home sites, because it would really help ramp up the sport. I'd play those games the first couple of weeks after the conference championship. And then the quarterfinal round I would play in the New Year's Six Bowls. And then the semifinals and championship game would be played. The semifinals would be played the day before the conference championships in the NFL. And the national championship game would be played after the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl would be played in the afternoon. The national championship would be played at night, on that Sunday night. To me, that would be huge. That would make for like the ultimate fortnight of football, so to speak. And I think that would make a whole lot of difference. Because, it's not going to get eclipsed by the Super Bowl. I don't believe that at one bit. I believe that this is an amazing situation to change the game for college football to where it meant something again. Now, the season would extend, but you'd have a lot of breaks in between. And I'm not saying I have the perfect solution, but to me, the 24-team playoff would bring that magic like March Madness brings, where every team's got a shot. If they have a great season, if they make the conference championship, win the conference championship, they've got a shot. Doesn't mean they're going to win it, but they've got a shot, and that's what all matters. Because right now, college football, even the top 5 conferences, you could go perfect in the ACC, but you aren't Clemson. Let's say next year North Carolina goes perfect and upsets Clemson in the national championship game, but they're not as highly ranked, and Clemson was highly ranked, and North Carolina upsets them. 5 conferences are battling for 4 playoff spots. And more than likely, the SEC is going to be good enough to get 2 teams in. So, to me, the whole point of a college football playoff right now is kind of pointless because not every conference champion is going to be able to go. 4 will at maximum, but we all know that's not going to happen. So, to me, the system needs to change. Doesn't necessarily have to be 24 teams. Could be 16. But to me, 24 makes those 8 spots in the second round bye, in the first round bye, I should say, all the more important. And I think that's, to me, a very important thing. And you could stay with 12 games and start the season off earlier in August and have more breaks in between. So that's let me end it right now because I gotta go eat breakfast. Y'all have a great day.